The PlayStation 3 didn't just give us great RPGs, it gave us weird ones, risky ones, and some that redefined everything. Yeah, you'll see big names here, but alongside them, you'll see hidden gems and bold experiments most people slept on. So, whether you're here for nostalgia or to find your next favorite, let's dive into the wildest RPGs the PS3 had to offer. Child of Light is one of those games that feels like a playable fairy tale, but don't let the soft visuals fool you. Behind the watercolor world and poetic dialogue is a surprisingly deep and well-crafted RPG. It mixes turn-based combat with platforming exploration, creating a flow that never really drags. Every battle feels active thanks to the timing system that keeps you on your toes, managing turns, interrupts, and combos in real time. The combat runs on a timeline system where every character and enemy takes turns based on their speed. Once a unit reaches the cast section of the bar, there's a brief window where they prep their move, and that's where things get tense. If you hit an enemy right as they're casting, you can interrupt their action and knock them back on the timeline. But the same goes for you though. So, timing, spell speed, and even who you target all play a role, and managing that mid-battle adds way more depth than most turn-based games offer. It's also one of those rare games that hits a sweet spot. It's simple enough for anyone to pick up and play, but there's plenty of depth if you want to dive in and optimize your team. Each character brings something unique to the party, and figuring out how they all fit together keeps things fresh. One of the coolest mechanics in the game is how you use light, not just thematically, but literally. You control a little firefly companion that can slow down enemies mid-battle, reveal hidden paths, and solve environmental puzzles. The soundtrack deserves a shout-out too. It carries the emotional weight of the game beautifully and makes the quieter moments hit even harder. For a game that flew under the radar for a lot of people, Child of Light delivers a full RPG experience wrapped in a gorgeous, bite-sized package. Most RPGs love clinging to knights, dragons, and magical kingdoms. But every now and then, a game decides to throw out the fantasy playbook and drop you right into the middle of a war zone. And that's exactly what Valkyria Chronicles does. It trades castles and wizards for trenches, tanks, and full-blown military conflict. Set in an alternate version of 1930s Europe, the game puts you in command of a small country caught between two superpowers, both desperate to control a powerful mineral called ragnite. What really makes Valkyria Chronicles stand out is how it blends tactical RPG mechanics with third-person shooting. Every move feels like it matters. Every shot is aimed manually, and positioning is everything. It's a unique mix that somehow feels both classic and completely fresh at the same time. What really catches you off guard is how attached you get to your squad. Every soldier has their own name, voice, personality quirks, and even unique passive traits that affect how they perform in different situations. Some fight better near friends, others choke under pressure, and a few just really hate the desert. If they fall in battle and you don't reach them in time, they're gone for good. No magical revives, no second chances. And losing a unit isn't just a gameplay setback. It hits on a personal level, as you remember who they were, how they fought, and it sticks with you long after the mission ends. Visually, the game looks like a watercolor painting brought to life, with a soft hand-drawn style that gives the heavy subject matter a strangely emotional edge. The soundtrack only adds to that weight, shifting from quiet, haunting melodies to full-on war anthems depending on what's happening on the battlefield. Valkyria Chronicles isn't just a cool concept. It's a carefully crafted experience that proves RPGs don't need swords and sorcery to be unforgettable.
A truth you'll find staring back from this.
When Dragon's Dogma first dropped, not everyone knew what to make of it. It wasn't hyped like other big-name RPGs, and it didn't exactly play by the usual rules. But word got around, and today, it's considered a cult classic and for good reason. The world is massive and full of danger. You're free to explore it however you want, diving into dark caves or getting dragged into fights that are way above your level. Exploring during the day feels adventurous, even peaceful at times, but when night falls, everything changes. The screen darkens almost completely. Visibility drops hard, and monsters get way more aggressive. Towns shut down, safe spots become rare, and every step outside feels like a gamble. You can carry a lantern, but that only helps so much. The real hook, though, is the pawn system. Your main pawn isn't just a generic follower, they adapt based on what they experience. If you often climb monsters or use certain tactics, they'll learn from that and use them on their own. And since pawns can be hired by other players, your companion brings back knowledge from battles they fought in someone else's world. That means they might already know how to defeat a boss you haven't even met yet, or where hidden loot is buried. It creates this weirdly personal connection to your party because they feel like they're growing alongside you, not just following orders. The combat is fast, brutal, and honestly still feels better than most modern RPGs. You can climb on top of a griffin mid-flight or stab a cyclops in the eye while hanging off its shoulder. But what really makes the combat hit different is how physical and reactive it feels. Every class plays completely differently. Warriors swing heavy weapons with real weight, while striders flip around with daggers and shoot arrows mid-air. Magic isn't just about casting flashy spells either. Some take time to charge, leaving you exposed, but the payoff is massive. You can knock enemies off cliffs, light oil-soaked goblins on fire, or pin flying monsters to the ground with well-timed attacks.
It worked! It worked! Tear the city stone from stone!
On the surface, Eternal Sonata looks like a bright, whimsical JRPG. But behind the pastel colors and dreamlike visuals is one of the most original concepts the genre has ever seen. The entire game takes place inside the mind of composer Frédéric Chopin during the final hours of his life. And as he drifts between reality and fantasy, the world you explore becomes a reflection of his thoughts, emotions, and regrets. The result is an incredibly artistic RPG that blends music, philosophy, and emotion in a way that feels completely unique. Every character, location, and battle is deeply tied to musical themes, from the names of party members to the rhythm-based combat system that adds layers of timing and strategy to traditional turn-based fights. Combat in Eternal Sonata plays out like a hybrid between turn-based tactics and real-time action. Each character has a time-limited window to move freely and position themselves before attacking, which makes every encounter feel more dynamic than your typical JRPG. But what really sets it apart is the light and dark system. Depending on where you're standing on the battlefield, under a light source or in a shadow, your skills completely change. Some characters get stronger attacks in the light, others unlock entirely different abilities in the dark. The story isn't afraid to be melancholic or introspective, and while the pacing slows down at times, it always feels like it's trying to say something meaningful. It might not have had the mainstream success of other JRPGs, but it's the kind of experience that sticks with you long after the credits roll.
Your end is near.
Quick break. If you're enjoying the video, hit that like button. It really helps more than it seems. And drop a comment too. Which PS3 RPG do you think absolutely needs to be in the next part of this video? Comments are huge for the algorithm. They tell it this content matters and help push the video to more people. Plus, I check every single one. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do it. Your future self will thank you, probably. Fallout 3 dropped players into a brutal post-apocalyptic Washington, D.C. And for a lot of people, it was their first taste of just how deep a Western RPG could go. Developed by Bethesda, the same team behind Skyrim, this game traded medieval dragons for nuclear ruins, mutated creatures, and a world that felt like it was barely hanging on. At its core, Fallout 3 is about survival and freedom. You're not just completing quests, you're shaping the world around you. Every decision carries weight, and whether you're a hero, a monster, or something in between, The game reacts to the path you carve. That karma system isn't just cosmetic. It changes how people talk to you, which companions will join you, and even how the story wraps up. And instead of just aiming and shooting like a regular FPS, you can freeze time and target specific body parts on enemies. Want to cripple a raider's leg so they can't chase you? Go for it. Want to knock a gun out of someone's hand? Line up the shot and pray your percentage is high enough. It turns every firefight into a mix of strategy and chaos, especially when you're low on resources and every bullet counts. Plus, watching your character pull off a slow-motion headshot never really gets old. But what made Fallout 3 so groundbreaking at the time wasn't just the open world or branching choices, it was the sheer density of the content. Hidden vaults, abandoned towns, shady factions, bizarre side quests. There's always something waiting around the corner, and most of it isn't marked on your map. You just stumble into moments that feel handcrafted. And yeah, visually it shows its age now, but the atmosphere still hits hard. The soundtrack is eerie and nostalgic. The world feels dangerous in every direction, and even when you're overpowered, one wrong step can ruin your day.
Opening fire! Keep firing!
Good enough.
Hey! Where?
Shepard did everything right. More than we could have hoped for.
Mass Effect 2 isn't just a shooter with dialogue, it's one of the most ambitious RPGs of its generation. BioWare built a universe where every decision matters, and somehow managed to wrap it all in a game that plays like a high-stakes action movie. You take control of Commander Shepard, customizing your character's background, appearance, and even how they handle every conversation, mission, and moral dilemma. The game throws you into chaos from the opening moments, and from there, it only gets more intense. It blends third-person shooting with RPG systems, allowing you to level up, assign skill points, build your squad, and shape the story across a dozen key choices. Your team isn't just there for backup. They have histories, personalities, loyalty missions, and real consequences if you ignore them. Mess up, and you can actually lose squad mates permanently. The writing is sharp, the voice acting still holds up, and the pacing makes it really hard to put down once you're in. Even if you're not into sci-fi, the amount of player agency here is impressive. Mass Effect 2 takes the best parts of Western RPGs, like customization, choice, world building, and delivers them in a cinematic package that still feels ahead of its time. And all of that freedom and squad management builds up to one of the most memorable final missions in any RPG, the Suicide Mission. It's not just a name for dramatic effect. It's a full-on high-stakes operation where the survival of every crew member depends on the decisions you've made throughout the entire game. Who you assign to which role, how loyal your squad is, and whether your ship's been upgraded can all decide who lives and who dies. It's brutal, tense, and deeply personal, especially when you realize someone didn't make it because of something you overlooked hours earlier. It's the kind of finale that sticks with you long after the credits roll.
What are you doing here? Thought you were still a work in progress.
Singularity came out at a weird time, when everyone was chasing the Call of Duty formula, but instead of copying it beat for beat, this game decided to do something way more interesting. It's a first-person shooter with a heavy sci-fi twist, mixing time manipulation with horror elements and RPG-style upgrades. You're thrown onto a remote Russian island called Katorga 12, where a secret experiment involving a mysterious element called E99 has absolutely wrecked time and reality. One second you're fighting Soviet soldiers, the next you're facing mutated monsters from another timeline. The main hook is the TMD, or Time Manipulation Device, which lets you mess with the environment and enemies in real time. You can age objects into dust, restore broken bridges, or literally turn enemies into skeletons mid-fight. You can go in guns blazing, or mess with the timeline to get the upper hand. And it never gets old watching a crumbling staircase rebuild itself as you rush to escape a collapsing building. Scattered across the island, you'll find E99 tech and blueprints that let you enhance your weapons, abilities, and even your own body. You can increase health, boost damage, reduce recoil, or unlock new functions for the TMD, like creating time bubbles that freeze enemies in place. There's also a decent amount of exploration, secret logs, and lore that paints a dark picture of what went wrong on the island. And while the story leans into some familiar sci-fi tropes, it delivers some genuinely bold moments, especially toward the end. And the game gives you multiple endings based on your choices, which adds replay value without feeling forced. Singularity never got the recognition it deserved, but it still stands as one of those rare shooters that tried something different and actually pulled it off. Final Fantasy XIII-2 is one of those sequels that doesn't just continue the story, it completely reworks how the game plays. After the backlash from the first game's linear structure, Square Enix went all in on giving players more freedom, more choice, and way more weirdness. This isn't your typical follow-up. It's a time-traveling, reality-bending ride that drops you into different eras, alternate timelines, and broken worlds full of chaos. The combat system sticks to the fast-paced paradigm shift mechanics from the first game. But now you get to recruit monsters and add them to your party. Each monster has unique abilities and roles, and building the perfect team becomes this deep, strategic layer on top of already dynamic battles. Exploration also got a major glow-up. You can visit multiple versions of the same location depending on which time period you're in, and your actions in one timeline can affect what happens in another. It turns the story into a puzzle, where figuring out what to do next means paying attention to clues, unlocking paradoxes, and dealing with the fallout of your decisions. And adding Noel to the cast was a smart move that gave the story a grounded counterbalance to all the time travel madness. He's not some legendary warrior or chosen hero. He's just the last human from a dying future, trying to stop everything from falling apart. And over time, you start to learn more about what he's lost, what he's trying to fix, and how far he's willing to go to change the outcome. But what really makes Final Fantasy XIII-2 stand out is how strange and experimental it gets. One minute you're solving mysteries in a ruined city. The next you're racing chocobos, or having philosophical debates with a floating Moogle. It doesn't always make sense, but it's never boring. And somehow, underneath all the chaos, there's a surprisingly emotional story about regret, fate, and fighting to rewrite the future.
So do it!
Good boy!
To the time after Oblivion opened.
When people talk about the golden age of open-world RPGs, there's no skipping Skyrim. It wasn't just another fantasy game with swords and dragons, it was a cultural earthquake. What Bethesda pulled off here was something no other Western RPG had done before. Skyrim gave you an entire continent to explore, and it didn't hold your hand. You wake up as the Dragonborn with a big destiny, sure, but the game lets you completely ignore it for hours, or even forever. Instead, you might find yourself joining a guild, hunting vampires, solving murders, becoming a werewolf, or just stealing cheese from villagers and running from guards. You can shape your character however you want, forge weapons, enchant gear, master powerful spells, and dive headfirst into political drama that spans across multiple cities and factions. Every choice leads somewhere. Some quests are short and silly, others are massive storylines with twists and consequences that stay with you. You're not locked into a single playstyle, and the game doesn't punish you for switching things up mid-run. You can dual-wield axes, cast destruction magic in both hands, block with a shield, or sneak through dungeons with a dagger ready for a one-shot backstab. And it all ties into the upgrade system, where every action you take, like swinging a sword, sneaking past enemies, even getting hit, levels up that specific skill. The more you use something, the better you get at it. Then, within each skill tree, you unlock perks that change how those abilities work, letting you specialize even further. The NPCs don't just wait around, they live their lives, react to your actions, and sometimes die because of them. And the amount of side quests is just unreal. There are literally thousands of them. You'll stumble into quests just by walking through a random cave or reading a forgotten letter in a dusty house. More than a decade later, Skyrim still holds up. It's the kind of game that pulls you in for a quick session and spits you out 10 hours later, wondering what happened to your day. Demon's Souls hit like a sledgehammer when it dropped on the PS3. It didn't come from a giant Western studio or a billion-dollar franchise. It came out of Japan quietly with barely any marketing and, for a while, barely any fans. But once it made its way to the West, everything changed. This wasn't your typical RPG with grinding, flashy spells and saving the world. It was slow, punishing, and every step forward felt like a small miracle. The world of Demon's Souls felt cursed, not in a dramatic way, but in a heavy, atmospheric way that stayed with you. The architecture, the ambient sounds, the eerie silence between battles, it all built this feeling that you were somewhere you didn't belong. You weren't the chosen one, you were just surviving. Every enemy could end you in seconds. Every corner of the map screamed danger, but that was the magic. The combat was tight and brutal. Stamina was everything, and even healing came with risk. Screw up, and you'd be sent right back, losing everything you fought for. But one of the wildest things about Demon's Souls is how the game changes without telling you. There's a hidden mechanic called World Tendency that shifts the difficulty and layout of each area based on your actions. If you die too much in human form or make certain choices, the world gets darker, enemies hit harder, and new threats show up. On the other hand, playing well or helping others can slowly bring light back, unlocking different events and paths. It's subtle, and the game never explains it outright, which made it even more fascinating. Players had to work together online just to figure it all out, and that sense of community discovery became part of the game's identity. It was raw, rough around the edges, and didn't care if you gave up. And maybe that's why it connected so hard with players. Just a quick heads up, this is actually part 2 of the video. If you missed part 1, it should be popping up on your screen right now as a recommendation. I definitely recommend checking it out, especially because the third game on that list is one of my personal favorites. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment on both parts to help me out. It really makes a difference.